Joining us now is retired Black Hawk pilot and instructor Martin Gottholm. Martin, thanks to you for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. So one of the big questions out there that investigators are looking into is the altitude that this chopper was flying, that perhaps it was flying maybe up to a couple hundred feet above where it should have been. What do you make of some of the early reports on this?
So, Whit, there are very specific helicopter routes with both course and altitude coming down the Potomac. In that route, which is Route 1, helicopters 200 feet and below, that is an absolute restriction. And flying under night vision goggles sometimes is more of a hindrance if they were under goggles, because with all that lighting, for them to actually see the other aircraft at those altitudes or mistake another aircraft for that is very unfortunate. So it looks at this point, altitude deviations by one or both crews.
And talk more about the night vision goggles, why they're used and how they could have had an impact in this collision.
So night vision goggles amplify the ambient, the light outside, 2,000 to 3,000 times. And when you're in the desert over in Iraq, they're amazing. But when you're in a real congested city environment, it's easier and sometimes better to either flip your goggles up or look under them to get a clear visual picture of the traffic. So when you've got all those lights and you've got your night vision goggles, they can actually kind of wash out and blend at that altitude, making it very difficult to discern a plane coming in at your altitude and crossing your flight path from left to right.
And another thing we heard, some of these audio recordings with air traffic control, the chopper pilots seem to acknowledge that they saw the plane before the crash. What does that say to you?
It says to me, like your previous guest, that they were looking at another aircraft. And when you're required to maintain visual separation, once you acknowledge or ask for visual separation, then the controller kind of relaxes a little bit because he thinks, well, that aircraft sees the other one. I've told them to maintain visual separation from that other aircraft, but clearly there was a mistake made. So then you fall back on altitude. So if nobody was talking or they made a mix-up, then altitude deconflictions should have saved those people. And once again, I was talking to somebody else, and the air traffic controller said, Pat 25, do you have the CRJ, the Canadian regional jet, in sight? And he acknowledged that he did and requested visual separation. But had he said, you've got a CRJ half mile, 11 o'clock, same altitude converging, do you have the aircraft in sight? If they had mistaken it for another aircraft, then that would have told the crew, I'm looking at my 11 o'clock, they're at the same altitude, they're half mile, we're converging. And that could have avoided the accident. As in any accident, there's always a number of things. They call it a chain, a sequence of events, that if you break that chain in one place, you can avoid the accident. And in this case, all those safeguards failed.
Yeah, tragic sequence of events here. Well, we'll have to stand by and wait for more information on the investigation. But Martin Gottholm, really appreciate your insights tonight. Thank you.